There's something else to be undecided about. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Very well.
You all know Tommy Newsom, the Tonight Show's answer to Patrick Lucy? I kid Tom, I shouldn't. He's had a very, very rough week. His wife left him just today for a marital aid. Well, today may be Halloween, but the real horror starts next Tuesday, right? I used to like go out Halloween night. The kids still do it. But I grew up in the Midwest. You know, you go out and you take a little paper bag. You're lucky if you got a Tootsie Roll or a couple of pennies or something like that. That's right, not nowadays. You ever live in Hollywood or Bel Air? You know what the kids do? They back up a Mercedes with their trunk open. There was a little panic on Capitol Hill today. A kid got dressed up as an Arab and went trick-or-treating in Congress. And he cleaned up, too. You know what the biggest selling mask is this year? A few years ago was what? Nixon mask. Everybody's wearing Nixon, and then whoever's popular, the Coneheads, I think, from Saturday night. You know what the big seller is this year? The Samurai Warrior mask. Because of the popularity of the NBC series Shogun, the kids are putting on those Samurai Warrior masks, going out Halloween yelling, trick or pillowing. You remember that? Well, let's see. Let's talk about the election a little bit. We've only got, what, Saturday, Sunday, Monday? And it'll all be over on Tuesday. Nobody will call it. None of the newspapers, none of the journalists or commentators. It is too close to call. Carter is running about even with Ronald Reagan. And the undecided vote is the crucial element. Wouldn't it be crazy if nobody won the election and the undecided held a victory party? They say this has been the most negative presidential campaign since 1948. When we think about it, we've come a long way from Truman and Dewey to Huey, Louie, and Dewey. You know what's occupying the front pages of all the newspapers? The three stories were about Howard Hughes' flying boat, Reagan, and Carter. Or as they call them, the spruce goose, the old turkey, and the lame duck. And both of the candidates, they feel... Nancy Reagan is very confident of victory. You know Nancy, the Evita of Bel Air. And, even my producer turned his back on that one. He knows the Reagans personally, and that's the last of his parties he'll go to. Thought you were going to the White House, huh? That takes care of you, Fred. Now, poor John Anderson, he's hanging in there, and I feel he's kind of the Rodney Dangerfield of politics. He's just, today, Barry Commoner and Ed Clark held a debate, and they didn't even invite Anderson. Now, wouldn't you know, 3 days before the election, you see what's happening? Now, Reagan's top foreign policy advisor, Richard Allen, had to resign today. You probably read this in the papers. It's all over the news. Under fire. At the same time, the Justice Department came out, all of a sudden, with a report that is supposed to be made public, accusing President Carter of not cooperating with the Justice Department when they were investigating his brother Billy. Isn't that strange? So you go to the polls November the 4th, and you can vote for the scandal of your choice. Isn't it nice? It's a great country you live in. Any boy can grow up to become president of the United States and take a job away from a qualified person. Matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to be invited to the White House either. You all know Reverend Jerry Falwell? Are you familiar with Reverend Falwell? Yeah, he is leading the moral majority. He's come out with some rather controversial statements. He made another one today. He said that God does not laugh at the jokes of Myron Cohen. He didn't really say that. I kind of made that up. Have you noticed, though, that God's name has been invoked a lot in these elections, usually more than ever? It's interesting because what happens, the voters, you see, Whenever they think of three candidates, they say, oh, God, we're in trouble. Now, in California, we have a lot of what they call local or state propositions on the ballot, as they do, I guess, in many states. Have you seen some of them out? Only in California would they have such weird... Have you seen Proposition 34 in affects Burbank? Mainly, what it would do, it creates a toxic waste preserve to protect the dump sites from environmentalists. That's here in California. Beverly Hills has Proposition 76. That would restrict Rodeo Drive from Arabs on Rodeo Drive from walking their camels without Gucci pooper scoopers. That's in Beverly Hills. And Proposition 18, my favorite in California, would make it illegal to offer a blender to anyone opening a new account at a sperm bank. Those are just some of them. Anyway, we have an exciting show for you tonight. As you know, we have Mr. Bob Hope with us tonight. Good show. Very funny gentleman. Very funny gentleman from Barney Miller. Steve Landesberg is here tonight. And one of the best writers and most astute observers of the political scene and what's happening any place, Mr. Gove Vidal, is here tonight. And Ed didn't mention this, but later on this very stage, Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev will be out here to discuss his secret SALT II talks with Amy Carter. So stay where you are, and we'll be right back. Thank you. Hello there. We're just having a wonderful time here.
We are in the studio.
Okay. This will be our last Halloween night. This will be our last show before the election. And the past week, we have been conducting our own poll on The Tonight Show. I don't know if any of the polls are very scientific. All we have been asking our studio audience to do, which we will do in just a moment, is to ask you to applaud if the election were held today, or forget it, if you're going to the polls next Tuesday, whom you would vote for.
But just applause.
Just applause, no yelling or whistling, because then it's not a fair test. And as you can see in the bottom of your screen there, that is what they call a, what is the official name of that? It's not an applause meter, but...
An applause meter.
No, but there's an official name for that. Bob, what is it?
VU.
It's a VU. It's a video what?
Volume unit.
Volume unit. Shows you actually the volume. So we have 500 people here of rather diverse backgrounds, I assume, and ages, and pretty
different parts of the country.
Fairly representative of the country. And I'm going to ask you in alphabetical order how you would vote for the candidates and also for the undecided. Now, just applaud for the people, for the person you really would vote for or you plan to vote for. All right, we'll start off in alphabetical order. How many would vote for John Anderson? Between 60 and 70, I guess. Now, how many would vote for President Carter? That's less than 60 on meter. How many would vote for Ronald Reagan? That's interesting. Now, it's happened that way every night this week.
Yeah.
Every night this week. Now, that's 2,000 people actually have taken... it'll be interesting to see Tuesday if this is as official as some of the other...
Anderson's strength. That's amazing.
That's interesting. Yeah. How many would vote are undecided? Okay. And our final one, how many of you would vote for this pumpkin? We're in trouble, folks. Wouldn't it be funny if pumpkin wins?
Yeah.
Do you pumpkin swear to uphold the... Then we put the pumpkin in the car going to the inauguration.
Right. Wow.
We actually have a jack-o'-lantern here. Remember?
Nice.
You used to carve those when you were a kid, and you had to carve them yourself. And
we still do. We do.
Then put the trick-or-treating. That's what I remember.
I love that.
Halloween night is trick-or-treating night.
Sure.
But you should, if you take young children out, go with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely go with
Too
them.
many crazies out there.
And yeah, because, you know... Wait a minute, what was that?
Doorbell.
Was that our doorbell?
Our doorbell.
Why, it's probably trick-or-treat time, I'll bet.
I wonder who's at the door.
Who could it be? See, trick-or-treating, folks.
Trick or treat?
Trick-or-treat.
there you
What
go.
would you like? Your popcorn ball? Okay, thank you. That was, incidentally, was President Carter's economic advisor. Who's out on the... And who knows, throughout the show, we might have
other surprises.
some other trick-or-treaters at our door right there.
I like the bell.
Well, we set it up. Wasn't that nice?
Nice. Oh, we haven't had a bell before.
All right, we're going to do this, a word from one of our sponsors, and then Mr. Bob Hope will be out here to talk about his specials line. Oh, good music. Thank you, Tom. This gentleman needs no introduction at all. Bob Hope is here. He's got a special tomorrow night on NBC called Bob Hope for President. Maybe we could get the applause meter on Bob. It's going to be on from 8 to 10 tomorrow night. And on November 8th, he's going to be at the homecoming show at the University of Kentucky in Lexington. Would you, Malcolm? Well, would you do whatever you want to do? Mr. Bob Hope. You better run.
I think
You
you
better,
could win.
you better really run for president.
I heard that poll. Is that something, huh? The pumpkin wins, huh?
We've run that the last 4 nights, and it's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Everybody at NBC has been running around here the past week. T-shirts says "Hope for President."
Yeah, that's good till Sunday.
Yeah.
Till Sunday, that's all. I
You
just
got
hope
pre-
they run a lot.
You got preempted the other night by the debate. Your special was originally scheduled for
That's right.
what,
Tuesday.
Tuesday
Supposed to be
night.
on Tuesday, but those other two comics, they grabbed it. Sure.
Yeah. got a few
here we
laughs
are.
too.
You know that. So we're on Saturday. Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah.
People have come to you, haven't they? Really?
Yeah.
And asked you to run for
That's right.
office
About
at one time.
13 years ago.
Did you ever think about it? Give it
I
any
thought
serious
about
thought?
it, and for about 5 minutes, and the money's not right. You know that.
I was going to
You
run.
make more in 1 week than Carter, and you don't have to listen to Amy's violin.
I told him I'd take it, but I wanted a guest president on Monday nights. Get the 4-day week.
No, but my God, the way you negotiate, you could get the hostages back in 3 days.
I happen to be a part of Bob's show, so I know a little bit about it. You got a lot of people on the show.
Oh, yeah, we got 21 people.
I ran into
21 stars.
Angie
and
Dickinson
you.
the other day. Yeah. What was that?
No.
Well, I haven't received the check yet either. Is the check in the mail? Is it?
You know how slow the mail is.
I'll bet you can't.
It'll be there.
I'll bet you can't remember half the people that are on the show.
I do. I can remember because there's a lot of comics that are funnier than I am. There's Tony Randall.
Tony.
Who's sensational. Jonathan Winters. Harvey Korman. Louis Nye. Mr. Bill.
From Saturday Night Live, Mr. Bill is on.
Incredible Hulk. Tracy Austin.
Angie Dickinson.
And we have Angie Dickinson, Stephanie Powers, Brooke Shields, Miss America, who I finally ran. You know, she's my running mate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then Sammy Davis, who did a wonderful number by Ken and Mitzi Welsh.
Right.
Let's put a real song and dance man in the White House that we did down at Coconut Grove, and then about 9 others. Now I'm forgetting quite a few, I guess. But
And this is not the an hour special. I didn't mention it. 2 hours, right?
yeah, 2-hour show.
2 hour special.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got it. What'd you bring tonight? I don't know what you brought tonight. On the
What?
film. Usually you bring stuff that's not going on the show.
Oh, you have a clip?
We got something.
Isn't that wonderful?
Amazing how.
This must come as
Amazing.
come as some surprise to you, doesn't it?
Well,
What
gun.
an actor. what an if there's an Academy Award, you should have got it right for that. Usually you bring stuff of the various people on the show.
We got a couple of for some of the actors, we got a couple of outtakes on certain people.
Because I
And,
had the privilege of placing Bob in you a nomination.
Yes, sir. You put me in nomination.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
If you
Should
ever need me,
Should we take a look at this?
All right, fine.
Okay, this
Wonderful.
is a little excerpt from the show
Wonderful.
tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Bob, dare to dream. Inauguration day. There you are. You've just been sworn in.
You think it's too much?
How do you feel?
I'm fine.
Les, can we pick the tempo up a little bit?
What do you feel is the most important part of Bob Hope's campaigning, running for president, from your standpoint as a gentleman of the South?
The people of all walks of life truly love him. There may be a few that you know, but those are hateful people. People that'll be done away with after he's inaugurated.
Hope, did you send for me?
I did if you're Susan Powell, the 1981 Miss America.
Gee, Mr. Hope, the folks back home consider you an American institution, just like ham and eggs.
Well, they're half right.
Who is this great leader who's about to assume? Who is this great leader who's about to resume, or assume, or I don't care, I lost it. Let's go back.
Okay, who is this great leader, John?
The next president of the United States, Mr. Bob Hope. Our candidate here. We twice, didn't we? You brought the nasty stuff. You brought the little things we do in the studio to keep the studio audience alive there. That's funny.
Do it to you.
That's funny. I went over there 3 times, took a shot at it, and blew one line after another.
Oh, geez, well, you should hear me.
And the more often you try it, the sillier it gets.
Oh, God. You get some of the stuff I do in my monologue every once in a while. It's just murder.
Look, you've entertained a lot of presidents. So who was the first one that you knew well?
Well, I started with FDR in 1944 at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Then I went on and entertained all of them,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're close friends with
Well, you get to know them because they invite you back, and then they invite you over to the White House. I stayed at the Lincoln Room about 3 times.
Did you really?
It had a big effect on me. The first time I stayed there, I woke up in the morning, went to the telephone, and freed my writers. I hope they weren't mad because in the middle of the night I had to go and I reached under the bed. And how do I know that it's silk hats? I mean, I didn't know what they were.
Who had the best sense of humor?
I don't know. They're all good. I mean, they have to have a sense of humor. Otherwise, you couldn't handle that job. I think so. The problems are.
But some of them like.
But I think Kennedy was a very, very fast man with a quip. And I think if he hadn't been a politician, he would have, he would have gone on to be a comedian or something. Yeah. We don't need him, but I mean, I think he would have.
Now, Johnson was to be honest, was a rather earthy man.
He's a practical joker.
He liked
Mr. Johnson.
The kind of rough.
I don't have time to tell you all the things about him, but Johnson was driving down south. He used to love to drive fast, and a cop stopped him, and the president cranked down the window, and the cop looked in and says, "Oh, my God," and Lyndon says, "You better believe it."
We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back. You have to leave. Should we just mention the show again tomorrow night?
Why not do it?
Tomorrow night, is it 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock to 10. 8 to 10.
8 to 10 tomorrow night. That's all over the country, I guess, 8 to 10. Except in the Midwest, it would be
7 to 9.
7 to 9, right?
Yeah, that's right. 7 to 9 in the Midwest.
Robert Hope for president.
Yes, sir.
And if it doesn't work out come Tuesday, we'll hold another election.
Right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Tom. That's nice. Welcome back. Halloween night. Oh, wait a minute. I believe that's somebody at the door.
I believe I hear the doorbell.
Who could that be? Come in.
Would you debate me?
No, Mr. Anderson, I won't debate you. No, I'm sorry.
Would Ed debate me?
No, Ed can't debate you. Look, just take an apple or something. Have a happy Halloween. Nice of you to see you.
How about Doc?
No, Doc's not here.
I'll settle for Tommy Newsom.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Poor guy. So sad, door to door on Halloween. Well, when you don't have a big budget, that's what you do. Did you hear the audience for a moment? How many of you were almost for a moment thought it was John Anderson? Yeah. It's a gentleman by the name of Smith Russell, and he comes from Ron Smith's celebrity look-alike agency out here in Hollywood. Just for a moment there, head on. Freddie thought it was John Anderson and thought he'd walked in by mistake. Anyway, I'm a big fan of this next gentleman. He's a very funny guy, and he is playing the erudite Sergeant Dietrich on the long-running series Barney Miller, probably the best-written television situation comedy on the air right now. Would you welcome Steve Landesberg?
tell you, good crowd, John.
Good crowd, good crowd.
Showbiz is hectic, you know, hectic. I'll be opening in Westbury November 6th, and then I'll be following you at the Sahara.
You've been hanging out with Rodney, huh?
I figure I'd plug his spots, you know. Nobody ever plugs anybody else.
That's right. You just got the TV show. You're set.
I'm not.
How you been?
All right.
Happy Halloween. I don't know that people wish people happy Halloween, but
Yeah,
happy Halloween
sure.
anyway.
Happy Halloween to you.
Yeah. Did you go out as a kid in New York and do all that stuff?
I went out last year, as a matter of fact. I picked up $8, $9, you know. So.
Did you speak of, I did a lot of stuff on politics tonight. Did you watch
Yeah, I've been watching
Did
it.
you watch the great debate last Tuesday night?
Johnny, I'll tell you something. I said to Jimmy, I said, there's a couple of days left. They're going to be asking you about Billy. Look him in the eye and say, I'm an only child.
Hope they buy it.
And if they bring up, you know, if you're gonna talk about big issues, don't say you discussed them with Amy. Say only this morning I was talking about nuclear disarmament with Trini Lopez. That'll get it, won't it? And don't forget one thing now. Ronnie is old. He's old. He's an old timer. I mean, you know, he said the other night on the debate.
On the
debate. He said that, when I was young, this country did not know there was a racial problem. That means he's almost 500 years old.
People don't understand in the South they say debate and police.
That's right. Well, they also say that in the ghetto.
Yeah.
The police.
Yeah. Would you ever run for office?
No, I wouldn't run for office. I would like, you know, with Reagan running, whatever, I don't know what's going to happen, but of course he's
Nobody
an
does.
actor and, but...
Well, you're an actor.
Yeah, but I would love to see, to me, the most heroic guy was always, and you know that I do him, but that's not what, Gregory Peck to me was always, and I love when you have him on.
He has the stature.
I know, I saw him in a...
Talking about looking presidential.
That's right, he does look, he's heroic, you trust him. I mean, if he announced on this show, Johnny, I'm announcing for the presidency of the United States. Now, what would be the first question you might ask? What would you say?
What would you do about nuclear disarmament?
Johnny, I don't know. I have no qualifications at all for the office. But what the hell's the difference?
Just lay it out.
I love when you get guys, the movie stars that I'm used to seeing just in the movies and not on talk shows. You get a guy like Gregory Peck, who once in a while will plug a movie and he'd come on and he'd say, it was a departure for me to play a Nazi, but I had a wonderful time, and after the movie we had a party and everybody got naked.
Completely out of character.
You know what kills me when you have Jimmy Stewart on, and he tells a joke.
Well, he looks like a guy doing Jimmy Stewart.
That's what it is. That's exactly, and Gregory Peck.
It's
did
an
the
impression, the same thing.
It's a guy, Jimmy Stewart's a joke, Johnny. If a man in Las Vegas and he opens and he gets and the door opens and I have no idea where he's going and I'm laughing through the whole thing.
He did his yell for, I think it was Princeton? Princeton yelled here one night and got up and did a yell when he was in college. And he wasn't trying to be funny. But
No,
you're hysterical.
I know,
it's like listening to Jimmy Cagney. It's something you've indelibly is there as a kid, you know.
Stewart would be wonderful if he ran for president because he's...
How would you like him on the hotline?
That's it.
Yeah.
Now, just a minute, Mr. Brezhnev. If you think that if it's over.
Where's the button? Yeah.
That's it. That's it. I'd love to see somebody like Scott run because
George.
Because if they offered him maybe he was president and they offered him the Nobel Peace Prize or something. You know how he is about awards. You can take that damn award, take your Nobel Peace Prize, and shove it. Well, these guys, the thing that's killing me about politicians is that all the congressmen that are getting in trouble are copping out the same way. Have you noticed?
I know what you're going to say.
Well, it's true. They all say that they cannot drink. All these guys are saying,
They took the money.
That's it. Whatever it is.
There's a reason for that, though.
Well, I can't drink. I never could drink, Johnny. I had 2 drinks, and I went into the men's room, and a young man come up to me, good-looking boy. And I tell you this, I thought that he was one of my constituents, so I reached out to grab his hand. God knows I can't handle it. They all do the same thing. And the guys with the money on
Anybody who's taking any money said, well, I was bombed at the time.
Yes,
Therefore,
that's wonderful.
It's a great defense.
They got the guy on tape.
Yeah.
That's a beauty. I don't know what that guy's going to say. Well, I thought he was giving money for a 6-pack. How do you know when politicians tell the truth? I have no idea. Or anybody tell the truth. It's like when you have authors. You had Shelley Winters on, and she was talking about her book, and she slept with everybody in the world, right?
Yeah,
we don't know. Ronald Coleman has been dead how long? 20 years, 25? He might be... I never touched her! How do we know?
I mean, who would go to bed?
What about the Flynn book?
Well, you see, after that, I've often wondered whether that's fair, because as you say, you can write a book, and if somebody is gone...
You don't know.
You could have been asleep with anybody.
You do not know. There's no way of telling. The guy wrote about Errol Flynn. He said that Flynn was a Nazi. I have a feeling that there are guys from Argentina calling up Nazi. He was not a Nazi! He was a sissy actor! I told you the last time I was on, we went to Europe last summer.
Right.
And the English tour guides, we had a lady who told us she knew everything in the world, and I believe her because she studied, she knew her job, and she'd say, and that tree over there was in 1872. And then she'd look at we'd be in a museum, and that was painted on Thursday night, 1452, and the Prime Minister stubbed his toe there for the leg was a little... Totally different than the French tour guide. We had a kid, a college kid, and he was a nice kid, and he was driving us around. You'd see something that looked famous, and you'd say, Philippe, what is that? How the hell do I know? I am a kid, I don't know.
French are warm, aren't they?
Yeah, it was good. Oh, there's a new one coming out. I don't know if you've heard about this. You probably get all these people that want... I don't even know... Wait a minute. Maybe it wasn't even written. Somebody told me that it was... there's a book coming out about alleged affair between Prime Minister Nehru and Lady Mountbatten. Did you hear anything about that? Lord and Lady... and the Lord said it was cool. He said, may I watch, you know, something. But that's a wild image of Nehru sneaking... Oh, please, I'm so excited. Hurry up. I have no time. I have a meeting, you know. Oh, boy, yippee. Well, whips off the turban. One more time, Heidi. Come on. They play games.
Of course they do.
You're so silly.
Mind if I could just watch, yes?
True. You glad to be back to work now that the strike is over?
Yeah, I love it. We've done about 3 shows already, and it's like I'm thinking about when do we go to lunch? You get right into it.
Yeah.
I'm ready to... But I did something different during the strike. The strike happened, and I said to myself, well, here I am, not working. Maybe I should do the stand-up again, because I hadn't done it.
Did you go out?
I went up to San Francisco. I went up to a club called the Boarding House, and I did about 6 shows up there. And the people, hey, it is a great city. I love San Francisco. But the people came to see me. It was nice. But I still, my manager was in the bar after the first show, and the people had come to see me, and they were laughing at me. And, you know, I've never been fond of the road. And doing this. So he says, well, and I said, no change. And he, you know, his face went like that. He figured I was out on the road for the rest of the year. But I did decide that I do like it like a college date, one show.
Yeah,
I love doing one show, and I'll stay on stage a long time. And I went out down to Miami last Saturday night. I worked at college, and I had a great time. Now I look forward to doing it.
Yeah, I think anybody who does comedy has got to get out and work a live audience occasionally away from television.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it because they're coming to see me now, and it's different.
And to find out what's going on.
It's not like when I started, and I had done a great Tonight Show. It was my second Tonight Show. Yeah. I had done The Psychiatrist, and it was great. The audience was laughing. I went out, I worked in Chicago in front of the Sand and Gravel Convention. They were sitting there, they had badges and dirt and rocks on the table. They looked at me like I was from the moon. They didn't believe it. What in the hell's he talking about? Let's go back to the hotel. Guess I'm going. Bring a donkey in the room.
transfer.
No
to sand and
way.
gravel.
No way.
We'll take a break. Gove Vidal is going to join us. Thank you, Tom. We're talking with Steve Landesberg. Oh, somebody's at the door. Come in.
Oh, my goodness.
Trick or treat?
No, trick or trick.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding.
Oh, forgot it's Halloween in Hollywood. There you are.
Thank you, Buster. I'll owe you one.
Happy Halloween. Comedy relief there.
Very festive show.
Festive. That
show.
festive is the word I wanted.
Yes.
My next guest. This is a good night for him to be here with the election 3 days away. He is one of the most erudite of American writers. His originality and wit attract a lot of attention. Would you welcome Mr. Gove Vidal? Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I was out there before the show apologizing to John Anderson for having come out against him. He was standing in the corridor, and I tried to get around him, and I said, well, I'm seeing him for dinner tomorrow night, which indeed I am seeing Mr. Anderson.
Striking
and I was trying to
resemblance,
tell him, oh, it was uncanny. And he just let me go on.
You standing there apologizing.
And he said, and his wife was there, and she said, I'm Kiki. I said, I know, I've met you before. I said, covering up, and I realized it was not Kiki, and it was not Anderson.
Well, Gore, I imagine you can hardly contain your enthusiasm about the upcoming elections. It's just,
I'm just a bubble. I guess there's no other way of putting it. I'm effervescing at the banana republic that we have become, or in this case, big banana republic.
What has happened this year? As I said in the monologue, it's probably the most negative type of election in many, many years. People are just turned on. I read the wonderful column you wrote, I think, a week or so ago. We'll get to about the moral majority. But what's happened?
Well, I think it's all sort of out in the open that the people of the country have nothing to do with picking the presidents. Half of the population never votes. So we have two political parties. Half vote in the presidential elections. That's of all who can vote. And half don't vote. Well, the half that votes is divided between Democratic, Republican, citizens, Libertarian, and the guy in the corridor.
Right.
And this is just a little game that they play. It's sort of like the Grammy Awards. If you're into records and so on, it's a very exciting thing to watch these people get up there and praise one another for their various hit records. If you're not interested in it, it's pretty boring. So suddenly, this party that votes has produced a president that really nobody likes. Well, Amy and some of the down-home folks probably like him. You have an actor. I mean, if Reagan gets to be president, it's going to be... We're going to be trapped in an old movie. You're going to see him on the press conferences in the morning. You're going to see his old movies at night. I mean, you're going to say, now, wait a minute, what's real?
It's like a time warp.
Exactly like a time warp. And, of course, he's, Andy Hardy, Carverville. He's going to bring back the grand old days. And then Mr. Anderson just sort of proved that there was not a two-party system.
Yeah. Third parties historically have never worked, have they?
Well, not since the Republican Party started with Abraham Lincoln. It's been sort of downhill ever since. But that was the last one that really was effective. But I would think that what's going to come out of this, it's my hope and belief that this year, less than half of the people will vote. If less than half vote, the president is illegitimate. He does not represent the electorate. Now, this would be quite fascinating. The first election in which, let's say, only 48% of the people who could vote voted. Then you start over again.
Right.
And what I'm in favor of is having another constitutional convention and having a totally different political system, because this one does not work as we are observing right now.
I was watching a show the other night, and some assistant professor of political science at UCLA was discussing the turnout. And he predicted around 53% possibly. And the fellow asked him, well, what can you do to get people to vote? And he said, We don't know. He says, why don't people vote? He says, we don't know.
They don't vote because they're turned off.
But wouldn't you think when people are turned off that they would still try to make the change then by voting, but they don't find anybody that they think can make those changes? Is that it?
No, as Robert Alfonso Taft, a very distinguished conservative, once said, he said, every Republican president has been chosen by the Chase Manhattan Bank presidential candidate. He was talking about Thomas E. Dewey, but it's quite true today. And the bank, the Rockefellers, also picked the Democratic candidate. Jimmy Carter belongs to them quite as much as Ronald Reagan does, or perhaps Mr. Anderson.
So how do you take the political selection and put it back?
Well, I would say that the most patriotic thing anyone can do this year is not to vote.
Now, there's been several
That will send them a real message.
Now, I read your column on that, and yet you constantly hear on television, you hear the politicians up there, go and vote. I think Nicholas von Hoffman today had a column saying, look, if you really can't vote your heart, then don't, and you had the column about a week ago.
Yes.
If you really can't vote your conscience for any presidential candidate, go ahead and vote for your senator or the Congress. I mean, there are local elections, of course, and that's sad that it might turn people off from voting in those contests. But you said that sends a message also.
Oh, yes, because if, let's say, only 45% voted, we're going to have another constitutional convention anyway. The National Taxpayers Union got together, thanks to Howard Jarvis and Proposition 13, and I think 30 states out of the 34 that are necessary have agreed to another constitutional convention, and the people who are anti-abortion want one. All sorts of people would like to see a new constitutional convention, so we're going to get one. So why not redesign the whole thing, have a parliamentary form of government, restrict the powers of the president, restrict the powers of the Supreme Court, which have got out of hand, and begin again and have a system that represented the people who live in the country. Because this one doesn't. This represents oil companies and banks.
But it never seems to come to that.
No, because the undesirable element never liquidates itself.
Yeah.
And they've got a lock on the country.
Self-perpetuating, yeah.
They own the media, they own the newspapers, they own the banks, they own the politicians, and they are extremely happy with the way things are going. They get a little grumpy when we don't vote.
Yeah.
And you see these ads on television. I roar with laughter every time I see Barbara Walters or somebody come out of a box and say, you've got to vote, you've got to vote. Why? I asked the set.
Yeah, well, they held a rally here the other day to get voters to turn out. And I said, well, if you have to hold a rally and put on entertainment to get people to go vote, why should you have to do that?
You shouldn't have to do that, and we should start again.
All right. I have to interrupt for a second. We'll be back. In the few minutes we have left, and always when you bring up this subject about the church and its relation to politics, you kind of tread a fine line, because anyone can invoke the name of the deity at any time if they don't agree with you. But there's a lot of controversy now about the church getting involved in politics, and especially trying to do away with candidates who do not fit their image of somebody who is moral. How do you feel about that?
Well, any church has the same right that any American has under the First Amendment. They have the right to speak out, and if they want to be in politics, it's okay. I had never realized until this year that Jesus was a Republican. I mean, having been born Jewish, he couldn't join many of those clubs, but which are the backbone of the party. But this year, it has been quite evident that Jesus is indeed a Republican, which is good to know. I would say that the thing, whenever I watch these, it's kind of dangerous what they're doing, but I think that some of these reverends are going to get into a lot of trouble. I have a proposal which would help balance the budget, too. People who worry about Scientology and the Moonies and these crazy cults and kids being brainwashed and so on, there's one way around that, because anybody can start a religion, and it's tax deductible. I mean, it's what's the word? It's you don't pay taxes on religion, tax exempt.
Right.
I would tax all the religions. Now, the income of the Catholic Church, I think, has a portfolio of $5 billion. The income on that, they pay no tax to the United States government. Now, we got a slice of that. That would be, several $100 million a year. Every time Mr. Jerry Falwell or one of these jokers gets on television, now Jesus wants another $1 million. He wants you to send him $1,000 right now. I'd say, okay, but if they're the suckers to send him the money,